Hello everyone, and welcome to another CAD video. In this video we're going to focus on talking about the sweep tool, which is another powerful tool in creating more advanced shapes. And essentially what we can do is we can take some closed shape or profile from a sketch and move it along a path in a different direction, and the end result is we end up with a 3D object. So for example, making handlebars or potentially table legs or chair arms and things like that that have curves in them or different kind of bends to them. We can do them all at once as a single object, and that's a very powerful tool to have. So the first thing we're going to have to do is go ahead and make some different profiles, and we'll go ahead and make 2 or 3 different ones to try things out. So I'm going to do a front view to start off, and I'll go ahead and choose my XZ plane, and I'm just going to make some simple paths with my spline tool. So I'll start off with the origin, come along, do that, and then go ahead and finish. So there's one shape. So there's one. I'll do another one. One more. I'll do another one. Let's try something like, we'll start here, we'll come this way, we'll come back, and we'll go like that. And so there's my second shape. So we can see that we have 2 different shapes to start with. I'm going to go ahead and finish sketch. They're both on the same sketch. We can see that they are in 2D, they are in 3D space, but they are flat. And so now, again, what we could do is I use the origin for this one, which is good, and I could make a profile on that bottom XY plane and then sweep it along this. But the idea is that I don't necessarily have to tie myself to one flat side. What's nice is in our construct menu, we can make planes in different locations, and this last option, plane along path, is a wonderful tool. So essentially, we can make our path first. We don't have to worry about, oh, are they exactly perpendicular? In fact, we don't have to. All we have to simply do is make the path, choose the plane along path, and then put our plane anywhere on the path, including at the very end, which is very convenient typically. And then we can draw our shape on that. So I'm going to choose plane along path. I'm going to choose the path, and notice what it gives me, and I can actually start it anywhere I will like. Anywhere I can start it over here, I can start it at the end, and I'll start it at the very end, which is a distance of 1 at the very top. So I'll click OK. So now I have a drawing surface. I'm going to select this as my new drawing surface. I'll create my shape. Here's my drawing sketch. And I'll just go ahead and I'll start off with a circle as my center point. So I'll choose this, and I'll do it right on the origin. And I'll make this thing 15 millimeters in diameter. I'm going to go ahead and finish sketch. And if I go back to my home view, we can see, there it is. You can see the thing's perpendicular. And now we can use our sweep tool. So the sweep asks, by default, for the profile, which I'm going to select is the circle, and the path to follow is this line, and there it is automatically. It creates this thing for us. Now there are some other options. The first option is kind of the most obvious one. It's useful as a distance, so we don't have to necessarily use the entire path to do this. So if I realized, oh, I don't really need the bottom half of this sweep, I can kind of drag this along and say, I only need that much. And so I don't have to use this. Or if I decided I wanted to do a new sketch that's a different shape here and do the rest of it with a different, instead of a circle with an oval or something else, and then fuse them together, I could do that. But the idea is that I'm not required to use the entire length of the path with the profile if I don't want to. It's a default behavior, but it's up to us to decide that. Right? Taper angle basically says, do you want this thing to taper off wide, or basically become wider or narrower as time goes on along the path? And so I think the larger the number, the wider the thing becomes. So for example, if I try this, I'm going to put 1 and see what it does. Again, there are limits. If it's too large, it ends up maybe not working. If things overlap, that might cause problems. But I'll go ahead and try 1. And so for this one, it's kind of subtle, but essentially you can see that it starts off at whatever default size is and then tapers to a wider thing. So this circle is actually wider. Let's go a little bit bigger so we can see more of an extreme example. Actually, 2 is too large. How about, can we do anything over 1? Can we do, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this one. That's what I meant to do. 2. There it is. And now you can see definitely that it becomes wider, right? So it's the default 15 millimeters, and then it becomes thicker and thicker and larger by the end, and it tapers and goes from there. And again, depending on how big we do this, we could see the kind of growth of it over time. And then if we go and use our distance, we can see that it's going to automatically kind of not taper that much as we get along, right? So we have the control over that, how much tapering it goes on. The twist angle, we can't see it with a circle, so we'll do another one with a square or rectangle, and that way we'll be able to notice the actual twist in our results. The only other thing I want to try is our orientation. The default is perpendicular, we switch it to parallel. It's not going to work here. And essentially what this means is that at every single point on our line, if we have our orientation is parallel, we're saying that every single circle has to be parallel. And the reality is that if they fold over each other, that's why this is causing a problem. So your curves cannot be very steep if you're going to use parallel. Perpendicular means that at every stage, the circle is perpendicular to where it is on the line. And that allows it to curve around. If it was parallel, then they would all be level, and that would potentially cause problems as it went. So like basically, once you get to this kind of curve here, the parallel circles would end up slicing into each other, which is what causes it to fail. So I'm going to leave this okay with our taper. Let's try again with another shape. We have our other one. Again, it hides our sketch, so let's make sure we have our original sketch back up, and there it is. Let's try this with a rectangle. Same thing. I'm going to use the path along, plane along path. I'm going to select it. I'm going to keep it there at distance 1. I'm going to choose this new plane. I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to use a rectangle. I'm going to use a center rectangle because it's easier to snap it to the middle if I do it that way. So there it is, and I'll go ahead and do this as 20 by 20. I'll finish my sketch. Go to home view so you can see this, and there it is. And then I'll do my sweep tool again. I'll choose my profile. I'll choose my path. And there it is. You can see that. And again, I can do the same thing. If I did taper, I'll just do it one more time. I'll do taper to 4. We can see that it starts narrow and becomes a lot wider, so we can do all kinds of interesting things. I'll actually put the taper back to 0. And now the twist. So you can imagine this thing, if we look at it from this perspective, starts off as a square. And imagine if it rotated some number of degrees, we can choose that. So I'll put something like 45 degrees. And then you can see by the end of this thing, it's no longer a square, but a diamond, right? You can see that it took 45 degrees along the path. It rotated 45 degrees. And so if you want twists, and again, I can open this up again. If you want twists, if I want to do 90, because it is a square, the result is the square ends up being back where it was as a square, but we have a twist along the way. It has to rotate 90 degrees across the entire thing. So if you wanted to make handles that had a nice twist, there's sometimes iron handles on doors or on door handles or gates, we could do this, and we could pretty easily create objects that have these twists on them. So this is a great, useful tool. I also point out paths do not have to be open lines. So if I make another shape, so let's go and hide these bodies real quick for a moment. And let's make a new sketch. So I'm going to use a new sketch on our typical XY plane. And I'm going to go ahead and make a rectangle. And I'll just do a typical rectangle and make a square. And I'll do it 40 by 40. There it is. What I can do is I can actually make a closed shape on my sketch. I'll do this. In fact, again, I don't have to do this, but I'm going to do it again just because it's convenient along the way, a plane along path. I'll choose this as my path. And notice I can pick anywhere along this thing, and I can go however I want. So I'll just put it right there and click OK. I'll do a new sketch here. And now what I'll do is something a little more interesting. I will try to make a new shape. I'll do lines. I'll start off, I'll go this way. I'll go up maybe like that. I'll come along, snap to there, snap closed. I'll put a angle here just so I know what it actually is, and we'll say that, oh, it's already 120 degrees, which is perfect. I'll do 120. There it is. And again, I'm not going to mess with these lines anymore. Actually, what I'll do is I'll do one more thing. I will go out of my way to try something like a circle and do this. And what I can do is I can actually snip out some of these lines so that there's just one closed object. And there it is. And I'll also cut this piece right there. And if I click finish, we can see this thing. And so what I want to do is I actually want to sweep this around the entire square. And the end result is I'll get this weird closed shape. So this is actually really convenient. So let's try doing that. Let's choose our sweep. Let's choose our profile, which is going to be this thing. Our path can actually be the entire line. And there it is. We have this nice closed thing. So you can imagine, look, we made kind of like the top of a box or something like that with a round part. And notice how it does handle 45 degree things. In this situation, you can see that it actually has two distances, because we can choose how much do we want it to go in either direction. So I can not necessarily make it do the entire thing, but I can make it do portions. So if I wanted to, I could only go this far and pick that, whatever piece I think is appropriate for this, right? So by default to 0 and 1, that makes this one go 100% of the way, and that gives us the entire shape, which is very, very convenient, right? And so I can do this and then merge this with another object and go from there. So again, Sweep Tool does give us a lot of control. We can do quite a bit with our options. And there's a few more that I didn't mention, but I won't go into them into detail. But essentially, they allow us to kind of have more control over any shapes that we sweep along, any direction. And this is really kind of a great tool for making complex objects. I'll see you in the next video.